Welcome back to the podcast. We are not in studio right now, but we are still streaming. That is how much we are dedicated to this shit. So let's get into the first item that we are going to discuss today. It is going to be the new series, What If? What If? What If is an American animated anthology series created by A.C. Bradley for the streaming service Disney Plus. Based on the Marvel comic series of the same name, it is the fourth television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. It's produced by Marvel Studios and the studio's first animated series. The series explores alternate timelines in the multiverse that show what would happen if major events from the MCU films occurred differently. Bradley serves as a head writer with Brian Andrews directing. I am not too familiar with AC Bradley as an artist. Let me see what she's best well known for. Arrow, right? She was the writer of Arrow, Trolls, Three Below, and she's the writer and executive producer of What If. She's going to be the writer and producer of Miss Marvel, and yeah, she is not terribly super well known, but I gotta say that some there is some interesting stuff under her belt. I do know some people like Arrow. I haven't heard too much about Troll Hunters or Three Below, Tales of Arcadia. These look like animated series as well. Arrow being the live action series. So, what if let me give you a little bit of background from it. It is a little bit of action, adventure, anthology, science fiction, superhero series. It's starring the same titular way that Rod Sterling was the host of The Twilight Zone. Jeffrey Wright is basically our Rod Sterling in this. Jeffrey Wright is hitting those notes of, what if Captain America didn't get the superhero serum or something like that. He's hitting these very elaborate voiceovers that I personally enjoy. I don't know anybody that doesn't like what's his face, Jeffrey Wright. I gotta say that he's got this magnetic presence and performance that I can't like grasp even in this vocal performance. He is such an actor, with pinky up and everything like that. I really like having him in the MCU. So, with saying that, we have Jeffrey Wright. He is basically the host as well as what is called the Watcher. He narrates the series alongside many MCU film actors reprising their roles. September 2018, Marvel Studios was developing a number of series for Disney Plus, with Bradley and Andrews joining by the end of 2018. The series was officially announced in April 2019. So, Marvel Studios head of visual development Ryan Meandering helped define the series' cel-shaded animation style. Now, there's different parts about this What If series that is going to have people in different excited in different ways. I think the cel-shaded animation style is a step in the right direction for giving it this comic book kind of feel, but it also feels very much in the realm of having CGI heavy computer animation. It feels like we're steering away so far away from handmade, hand drawn animation that sometimes I miss it. I do miss it. This was the cel shaded animation style was designed to reflect the films and take inspiration from classic American illustrators. Um, I like classic American illustrators. I don't always feel like this is the best way to do it, because sometimes illustrations, when they move, are completely different from when they're just 2D stagnant figures. And so, animation for the first season is provided by Blue Spirit, Squeeze, and Flying Bard Productions, with Stephen Franick as head of animation. The first season of What If premiered on August 11th, 2021, and will consist of 9 episodes, concluding on October 6th. It is part of Phase 4 of MCU. A second 9 episode season is expected to premiere as early as 2022. So they are making all of these animated classic what if uh, anthology shows as we speak. And one thing that I will bring to the attention of everyone is, animation does take a lot of time, but it does not take nearly as much money and I don't think as many materials, physical materials, as having a live action movie. So the benefits of having this What If series is we are able to expand and live in the world that has been created by the live action movies that are already living in our heads. We can see what would hypothetically happen if Peggy Carter got the superhero serum instead of Steve Rogers. Same thing with, there's different types of what if scenarios that allow you to kind of say, uh, let's look at the narrative as we know it and then do a remix on it. Now, what I'm finding is some of the best episodes. I've watched the first 4 episodes, and we'll talk about each one. Not super detailed and not from the comic book standpoint because I'm not a comic book reader. I'm coming at it from strictly from the television standpoint. I just got to say that the coming from this standpoint is, uh, you know, it's a lot more beneficial to watch this series if you understand and you remember the timeline, the storyline, you've read the comics, you're always going to get way more out of this. But is this series successful just on its own? In my opinion, yes. I just realized that we're in stock and finance. I need to change that real quick. Just chatting. Okay, so yeah, there we go. People in the stock and finance are like, what are we talking about? What if? What if I made $1 billion on stocks? Sorry. So, anyways, by the way, anyone watching, listening to the VOD, be sure to check out the twitch.com/LuckyDog podcast. We are streaming this live where you could be asking questions in real time. So, let's talk about these different episodes that we've gotten up to now. It's 4 different episodes at the time that I'm recording this. The first episode, let me see. So, before we hop into the first episode, the premise is following the creation of the. This is going to have a little bit of spoilers from the Loki series. Because of the way the Marvel series works, you basically have to watch each single thing. They loosely watch. Okay, what I'm saying is you have to watch each single property to understand the small bits and pieces that are going to be in the next bits of TV, movies, and media that they're releasing. So, like I said, the WandaVision, the Captain and Falcon show, and then the Loki show. You watch each one of those kind of building up to the What If series. So, assuming that you've seen all of the Marvel stuff up to here, you've probably seen Loki as well. If you're a big fanatic, as if you're a Marvel fanatic, just as everyone else is. So, assuming you've seen the end of Loki, let's continue on. Following the creation of the multiverse and Loki's first season finale, What If explores the various alternate timelines of the multiverse in which major components from the Marvel Cinematic Universe film occur differently. So, as I said earlier, Jeffrey Wright plays Uatao, I think, / the Watcher. He is a member of the alien Watcher race who observes the multiverse. And so he cannot and chooses not to like interfere with the timeline. He can interfere. He just chooses not to, which I'll talk a little bit later. Maybe, is that going to be for sure for long? I'm not sure. So, let me push this back a little bit. There we go. All right, so continuing on, I think. Okay, so without getting too spoiler heavy, I don't want y'all to see all that yet. But so for everyone that is listening and wondering, should I watch the What If series? That's the question of the hour. I would personally say, um, how invested are you into the Marvel Cinematic Series? Do you want to be super invested like that? Here, let me get that. Do you want to explore the different quote unquote what if possibilities? What if some of these superheroes didn't become superheroes? What if they became um, evil, or what if they became hunted down? What if they became different types of superheroes? What if they were kidnapped? The possibilities of the what if series are very wide and very strong. There's a lot of different types of stories you can play with having this type of storytelling. So by saying that, I want to make it clear that these first couple episodes are inconsistent in my opinion. The first episode uh, is kind of giving us the best case scenario of, like, what if Peggy Carter became Captain America and took the serum instead? Um, and it basically is showing the clips through the Captain America movie, but what if Peggy was learning her powers instead of Steve Rogers, and how would that formulate? And so on the face of it, it can be very interesting, but if it's not handled with like subtlety, it can be a little bit ham-fisted. So when I say that, is like, so what's the most obvious thing that would happen when Steve didn't get the serum and Peggy gets the serum? Peggy does. It would be that, everyone in the 40s, or everyone in the time that it was, I think it was like 30s or 40s, everyone would say, "Oh, a woman can't do this, a woman can't do that," and I can see why that would be annoying. It's like the easiest thing on the face of it is like, okay, make her have problems that only women would have. Um, and so I can definitely see that would be, it feels a little bit patronizing. It's like, yes, a woman can do this. Yes, a woman can do that. A woman is just as strong as a man. It feels a little bit uh, half baked in this first episode. It's not necessarily like the worst or anything. I think the thing about the concepts of this what if show are that most of the concepts are really strong. They're really interesting. It's just the writing and sometimes the direction is inconsistent. The first two episodes I feel like are weaker on that front. Um, this first episode, what if Captain Carter were the first Avenger? During World War II, Steve Rogers is chosen to become the world's first super soldier, but is wounded by a Hydra spy before he can receive the super soldier serum. SSR agent Peggy Carter kills the spy and volunteers to receive the serum herself. And I like how they decide, it's like the writer is AC Bradley. She says the moment in time that is uh, the divergent part of this story is for her to decide that she wants to be in the room with the rest of everybody else. Apparently, in the movie, that's the movie says that Peggy Carter decides to leave the room, but by staying in the room, there's an explosion, and there's things that happen to propel her to become the new super soldier in this What If series. And so I think on the face of that, that's good. And I think that from the cinematography standpoint and understanding that the visual language of this, I think is strong. It's just sometimes the translation of live action to move to animation, and they're doing shot for shot remakes a lot of the times in this What If series, that it doesn't always translate. One thing I noticed is some people have we may not understand what's going on, but there's a reason that some people's voices transfer a lot better than other people's voices or other people's characters. Do you know what I'm saying? When I mean by that is I think Sebastian Stan is in the second episode, and there's a lot of things I like about Sebastian Stan's character. I don't think that his voice is one of the strongest parts of it. I will say that there are parts of the superhero genre that we may not be 100% absorbing and understanding why we like the superhero. I mean, I know this is DC language, but for Superman, I think a lot of Superman, um, the benefits of Superman are the imagery that he provides. A lot of the things are not what he's saying, but what he's not saying, and how he carries himself. That's kind of the best way I can kind of uh, reiterate how I'm feeling. But I don't know if the way that all of these characters in live action are carried over organically into What If. So, with saying that, I do like the first episode. I don't love it. I think the action scenes are amazing. I think the cell shaded animation look can be a little bit off kilter sometimes, but it's not the end of the world, to be honest. Um, so Peggy Carter ends up getting the super serum herself. She is successfully enhanced but banned from combat by SSR leader John Flynn. After she takes the Tesseract from Hydra with a vibranium shield created by inventor Howard Stark, Flynn reluctantly promotes her to the combat role of Captain Carter. Stark uses the Tesseract to create a weaponized armored suit for Rogers to pilot as the Hydra Stomper. So, by everything that's happening in this What If series, we see that the Iron Man suit, the first Hydra Stomper, is brought to the forefront way earlier than it would have been when Tony would have eventually got the Tesseract stuff in the cave. Carter and Rogers fight Carter and Rogers fight many battles until he goes missing while attacking a Hydra train. Um, there are really cool fight sequences. The fight sequences and all of What If, I think, are some of the best shot. It's some of the best laid out, storyboarded, whatever you want to call it. It's clearly got the most time put into it, mostly because it feels like it's choreographed really well. Um, yeah, so when the Hydra Stomper is flying, and we have Peggy Carter on the back, like shim, like taking out all the fucking Nazis and shit like that. Bad fucking ass. That was cool. Um, and another thing I gotta mention is how David Chen brought this to my attention on one of his YouTubes, is that they are trying to stay in this realm of being grounded because we're still trying to be in the live action MCU in a way, but we are still going a little bit above and beyond what would normally be able to be done in animation. So I do kind of like how they're trying to thwart that line. The biggest problem I'm seeing is these first two episodes, people are getting their absolute asses handed to them in many cases, and their faces or their appearance of the animation character aren't changing. Like, I'll see people are getting a freaking like fist and a throat like punch to the face or something like that. People are getting fucked up left and right, and they will barely have a scratch on them, and so it just feels like it's unfinished animation when it comes to that. I understand that it's like TV 14, so it's like not exactly for kids, but it's not exactly for adults. We're some sort of in the middle in a way, because we're saying hell and damn and all this stuff. But still, I wanted to see a little bit more stakes that were happening to. I wanted to see some reactions of what they were having to go through. So I don't know if reactions are the right thing, but just things that had happened to them. I wanted to kind of see that they had lived. It still feels like they haven't lived even after they've gone through this crazy what if scenario. So I'm seeing that they last from about 30 to 40 minutes each. I did find this first one a little bit long, but a little bit predictable as well. So let me continue. Carter and her allies find Rogers, and they infiltrate a Hydra base and see Red Skull, using the Tesseract to open a portal and summon an interdimensional creature, which kills him. It was this big ass like octopus shit. Like, the big octopus things are like in right now, because between Suicide Squad we have What If, and then we have I think another What If where they're trying to like fight a octopus or sea creature of some sort. It's like the sea creatures are in right now. They are hot. Carter emerges. Carter enters the closing portal to force the creature back. Almost 70 years later, the Tesseract opens another portal, which Carter emerges from, meeting Nick Fury and Clint Barton. So, it a lot of these what if episodes are leaving in a way that feel like it could bring in more story. And it's kind of like a cliffhanger in a way. Like, is there going to be more story? Is there not going to be more story? Or that's the end of the story, that kind of thing. And that's what the cool thing is about these series. Is like we could continue to have these, or we could just end them at the end of this episode. Um, so let's continue on to episode 2. Let me see. In 1988, the Ravengers are sent to Earth by Celestial Ego to retrieve his son Peter Quill, but mistakenly abduct a young T'Challa from Wakanda 20 years later. T'Challa has become the famous intergalactic mercenary Star-Lord and has been convinced by Ravenger leader Yondu Yandanta that Wakanda was destroyed. Nebula approaches the Ravengers and proposes to steal the embers of Genesis. Nebula approaches the Ravengers and proposes to steal the embers of Genesis, a cosmic artifact capable of eradicating galactic hunger from galactic kingpin Tanalan Tivian. Jesus. Am I saying that right? I don't know. At Tivian's headquarters on Nowhere, they offer him the Power Stone as a distraction. At the same time, T'Challa looks for the embers, but he finds a Wakandan spacecraft that was searching for him. Nebula seemingly betrays the Ravengers, who are captured, but this is another ruse to obtain the embers. Titan's slaves Karina rescues. Taven's slave Karina rescues T'Challa and helps the Ravengers defeat Tivian. T'Challa forgives Udanta for lying about Wakanda, and they return there so T'Challa can reunite with his family. Elsewhere, Ego approaches Quill, Dairy Queen janitor. So you can probably hear it in my voice that was remarkably hard for me to get out, just as is. But was saying that it's great to have, on the face of it, it's great to have Chadwick Boseman come back to reprise his role as T'Challa, not technically as Black Panther. But T'Challa is apparently a much better Peter Quill than Peter Quill ever was. If Peter Quill hadn't become who he was, then apparently the world would have been mostly pretty good up until the end. So I gotta say that my problem with this specific episode was that it feels like a hangout episode, and not exactly in a fun hangout way. It feels like a hangout episode in a way that would be, oh, it's the best of the best. It's all your favorite characters hanging out at the bar, and they're all doing their own thing. They're not fighting with one another. There's some of the good guys, some of the bad guys. It felt like almost like when you're playing a video game and people are just hanging out in like the main menu area. And it felt like that's kind of like what was happening, is that T'Challa was like running, he was running into a lot of individuals that were happening to be in this world. But the problem was, some of it felt inorganic. Some of it felt like the voiceover were just they were just saying things, and they weren't exactly, oh my gosh, I'm your biggest fan, and it's very uh, Mary Sue might not be the right word, but it feels like a lot of things that I would want to say to to real life superheroes or real life famous people or something like that. And I feel like the writing on the face of it was very half-assed in a way. Not half-assed sounds like I'm being a little bit I'm being a little bit harsh on it. But what I'm saying is I feel like they were saying things that were not exactly on the face of it interesting. We have Thanos pop up for one point, and he's just saying how T'Challa decided, with one conversation, T'Challa told Thanos he didn't need to destroy half the universe, kind of thing. Just small things. He's running into so many different characters. I feel like there is an emotional through line of Yondu being the father figure for T'Challa, and him coming back at the end and saying, this is, this would have happened regardless, kind of thing, and I'm just trying to do the best for you. It's not exactly reckoned with at the end, because T'Challa is taken away from his family, but yet the majority of the episode feels like it's just him hanging out in space with a bunch of the best of characters. And then when we go to see, what is his face? The Galactic Kingpin. What the hell is this dude's name? The Collector. The Collector is huge and yoked and played by Benicio del Toro, and the dude doesn't even act anything alike like he was in the Guardians of the Galaxy. As well as we get a little Howard the Duck sighting as well. Like I said, it feels like T'Challa is just like walking through what would feel like a remix of the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And for better or for worse, it feels way more relaxed. And then when there's a massive fight at the end, and it's wrapped in the guise of a heist as well. So I know my mind's kind of all over the place for this second episode. It's mostly because I feel like the second episode feels like an amalgamation of random shit happening. And it really relies on the viewer knowing the story and remembering Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Or Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 1 since probably it came out in theaters. What was like mid 2013 or something like that, or 2014. I don't remember exactly, but I just felt like this was an episode that you probably needed to see. Either it was best served with a comic book or best served watching the movies most recently, because there are callbacks, there are things that had happened. They showed Nabella's eye at one point. She had been tortured, but she's okay, kind of thing. I don't know. Overall, I think this second episode is got really high ambitions. I think all of these episodes have really high ambitions. Not all of them are executed to a T, though. But yeah, that's kind of my take on this second episode. Let's hop into the third episode, because with the episodes going, I think they generally only get better. So number 3 is, what if the world lost its mightiest heroes? Over the course of a week, S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury attempts to recruit heroes for the Avengers initiative, but they are each mysteriously killed. Natasha Romanoff injects Tony Stark with an unexpected fatal injection. Clint Barton accidentally shoots and kills Thor before dying in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s custody. Bruce Banner Hulk explodes, and Romanoff is attacked and killed while investigating the murders of others before she dies. Romanoff tells Fury that the murders are related to Hope, quote unquote Hope. The Asgardians led by Loki arrive on Earth to avenge Thor. Fury proposes an alliance to apprehend the killer. Fury deduces that Hank Pym is the murderer and has been using his shrinking technology to commit murders as a revenge for the death of his daughter. Hope Van Dyne, who died in the line of duty as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Fury and Loki defeat Pym, who is taken into Asgardian custody. Loki chooses to stay on Earth, becoming its ruler. Fury begins assimilating more heroes and finding Steve Rogers frozen in ice and summoning Carol Danvers to Earth. Was Hank Pym played by yeah, okay, so it's the Michael Douglas character. Um so yeah, I do find the third episode one of the most interesting because it feels like we're dropped into the middle of a third act of a movie and we already know these characters. The problem with the first two episodes are that the first one is the best of. It's the best scenes that they could find from the first Avenger movie, and they basically just swapped out Peggy Carter for it. The second one was a complete remix, and I think they just have way too many characters that they don't have a chance to really focus on any emotional ties. The third one, I feel like works the best from the first three, mostly because we know the characters, we know the story, we know what's going on, and it has a very simple premise, low concept of saying that we have all these different Avengers and they're being hunted down. And we know how hard it is to hunt down the Avengers based off the last 10 years of Marvel movies, how badass they are. So it's like, for something of this magnitude to be happening, what the fuck is going on? And so that's why I like the third one. We are put into a situation where it's just like, this is crazy impossible. And when it comes down to having the voice acting as well. We have Nick Fury back. We have Samuel Jackson back as Nick Fury. He's good on and off screen. We've realized when I say off screen, he's good animated, just voiceover. So I got to say, from the voice acting in this, I think it all really works well. I think the is that the only character we have that I don't want to go through too many of the characters because I don't want to spoil myself, but I'm pretty sure Sam Jackson was the only one that we have in this. Maybe I don't know if the Hulk was played by what's his face. I don't think the Hulk was played by. Oh, no, Ruffalo. Yo, Mark Ruffalo did. Yeah, he did. And Hiddleston is Loki. So yeah, there are a lot of the original voice actors that come to play their own characters, which I do like. One thing I forgot to mention in the second episode was that big ass whooping that the Collector gets from T'Challa, and just everyone fighting each other. Not a scratch, not a scratch, and that's the big problem with it. Is because people are going through these crazy. The second episode, people are getting their asses handed to them. Not a scratch on them, barely anything. And so when we get to the third episode, and everyone is literally being hunted down by these random ways. People getting shot, people getting exploded, people getting injected in the side. And it starts off with killing Tony Stark. It's just like, holy shit. We got stakes. We got to understand that there are actual stakes. And I think that's one of the best parts about this one. And it's dark as shit. We see basically Natasha Romanoff beat to death by an invisible guy. Which is pretty damn intense, as well as having the Hulk explode. I was just like, this is next level. So, and the way that it's done, it makes the most sense as well. So, I'd say it's a little bit weak at the end. Just how it ends just kind of feels like a little wrap up. Well, and we're done. It's like, wait, I think we just lost a lot of people. This is far from over. Um, but yeah, I do think the third episode is probably one of the strongest. They probably should have started it off with this episode. Don't know why they wouldn't. Um, but yeah, from all of those standpoints, and the visuals I think are some of the best in episode three. Just seeing the heroes that we know and love go through these crazy things. It's just like, oh shit. And they even brought back Liv Tyler's character as well. When she's like, no, Bruce, nah, oh jeez. Okay, so this is the fourth episode, and this was my favorite episode, even though it's relatively hardcore fridging. But we'll talk about that a little bit. The fourth episode is the best in my opinion because it focuses on a single moment in time. A lot of these what if shows are talking about a single moment in time and how they uh, unfold different times in the multiverse, thus revealing normally just a completely different timeline. The fourth one shows us what seems to be a single timeline. Sorry, a single moment on the timeline. And it's when Dr. Stephen Strange is trying to save his girlfriend. And I believe she is played by Rachel McAdams in the movie and in the voiceover, I believe. So this is what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. And I gotta say, this is one of the only, maybe the third one, but this one specifically feels like it's the best adapted from a comic book. I'm not exactly sure if it is, but I'm pretty sure it is. This would be one that I would want to go check out on the comic book just to see what really happened. That's some crazy shit in here. So what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? After losing his girlfriend, Dr. Christine Palmer, in a car crash, Dr. Stephen Strange travels to Kamar Taj and learns the mystic arts. He discovers the Eye of Agamotto, which can manipulate time, but is warned by the Ancient One and Wong that doing so could destroy reality. 2 years later, Strange repeatedly attempts to use the eye to save Palmer, but she still dies in every scenario. And so having this start off with them go in the sports car and get into the wreck for the first round, or the first time you see it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really sad. This is kind of intense for an animation, especially on Disney Plus. This is like something on the level of Love, Death, and Robots, just some next level adult shit. So they literally fridge Dr. Christine Palmer the first time, and Strange is just he's so upset about it that he has to rewind not once, not twice, but like a bajillion times to try to save Christine Palmer. And no matter how many times he's trying to rewind the time, it is like we are seeing a montage of Christine die in so many different ways. It is almost laughable at a point where it's just like, no matter what he does, she's going to die. And it is heartbreaking. It sucks that that's the way the story was written, I guess. But it also, it's a super fridging episode. Now, if anyone understands what fridging is generally taking of the female character in a movie. Generally, it's a female character in a movie, and having her die in order to propel the plot of the main character, which is normally a white straight guy. I understand the problem with that. I got to say that I don't feel like this one was focusing on that to that degree, as in like he needs to. It certainly is fridging in a way, because we're taking out the female character, and no matter what he does, she has to go for him to progress emotionally. And so that's where the problem comes in for some people. But let me continue with this just to say that this was one of the most heartbreaking episodes from an animation standpoint that I've ever seen. It was it rocked me emotionally. It rocked me from like the cinematography, the voiceovers. There was a little bit of the animation I wasn't crazy about when she's talking and they're just having one-on-one talking. But the majority of this episode, I almost forgot I was watching an animation, and that's really good storytelling. So, the Ancient One tells Strange that Palmer's death is an absolute point in the timeline that cannot be undone. But Strange refuses to listen. Using the power of the dark dimension, the Ancient One splits Strange into two alternate versions within one universe, I believe. One Strange accepts Palmer's death, while the other discovers how to gain power by absorbing mystical beings, becoming Strange Supreme. And he's like absorbing anything from like little gnome creatures like to other little like people and things and creatures and dragons. And he's like just like absorbing everything he can, and eventually evil Strange is going to have to face good Strange. And I got to say, this was like intense. And when you find out how long he's been in there, it's just that he's been in there centuries, which I don't think that would be possible to be in there centuries. That means he's like in there hundreds of years. Evil Strange is just absorbing all of these like entities and stuff like that. Like centuries would mean he's hundreds of years old. I don't know if that's possible, considering that there's still people alive. Like Rachel was still alive. Or somebody, there were people that were, Rachel wasn't still alive, but there were people that were still alive in that timeline that I don't know if they could have been alive if it was centuries old. But that might not be, he might have meant decades, and I might have got that wrong, but I don't know. Anyways, there's going to be good Strange versus evil Strange. And so the evil version overpowers the good Strange, absorbs him, and uses his power to resurrect Palmer. Okay, so this is when Palmer comes back. Tearing reality apart. Strange Supreme begs the Watcher for help, but he refuses to intervene. Palmer disintegrates and the universe collapses, leaving Strange Supreme to grieve alone. And just continuing on how this ends, the fabric of reality is like closing in on him, and the world as he knows it is like evaporating into this like goo, and he brings back Palmer at the very end just like he wanted, but that was not in the way that he wanted to do it. He had to turn into a monster for her to come back, and he is just begging and asking Jeffrey Wright's Watcher to help, and Jeffrey's like, I done told you done fucked up. And I gotta say, the Watcher, I generally love having his presence throughout this entire series. I love how he's just like in the background of stuff. He's talking to us as the narrator. Even like you can't 100% see his outline of his face, and you can kind of still see him talking. Really like that. This was the first time I thought the Watcher didn't look good in the series, and I was a little bit bummed about it. He's kind of turned to the side, and he's like looking a little bit, but his head looks like 3 times larger than his body. So it looks like a baby head on like a man body, but with a, I don't know. It's kind of weird to describe, and he's just like, you done fucked up, and he's just like backs up and lets the fabric of reality just destroy itself. And so there is some possibility that the Watcher may become more entrenched into the fabric of reality of the MCU. I think what the big thing is, what I've heard is that the Watcher is part of a series of guys, or not a series of guys. He's part of a group of Watchers of some sort, and they accidentally caused some sort of genocidal death of some sort of some figures of some sort. So the Watchers have caused genocide, and by the genocide they decide we can't touch the fabric of reality. We can't do anything. We don't want to fuck up again and have that happen, and so thus they don't want to intervene. But I mean, hell, the fabric of reality is already fucking gone by the end of this one, so you done fucked up on that one. There is going to possibly be a crossover of these what if events. Now, each one of these episodes are their own little universes within them. So they aren't episodic in that nature, but they might be in a way for the Watcher to intervene in some way. He might cherry pick some of the best things, some of the best heroes or events or whatever the hell, and bring them into his reality of some sort. But that's just my guess. I'm not exactly sure if he ever will. So, it's a little bit all over the wall with the writing. The action is where it, I think, thrives the best. When they focus on individual characters and individual people, and not like tons of different. I think it's when they focus on the people and not on the moments that they work the best. But that's just me personally. Let me know what you thought about the What If series, episodes 1 through 4. Let me know how I can improve the podcast. Let me know what you thought about, obviously, the episodes and whatnot. See if there's anything else we need to look at. Disney Plus, da 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 da. Yeah, we'll continue to watch this season. If it's like a super crazy ending, we'll do like a wrap up of the What If series. Otherwise, this will just be kind of standalone as is, just to kind of give you all a little heads up about what exactly we're watching. Um, and overall, yes, I think given the fourth episode, I would absolutely recommend this series. It's the first two that I was a little bit, I don't know if this is for, you know, my age group or my interest group, but it after 4, yeah, I'm in. I'm in. So, yeah, let me know how I can improve, and take it easy.